Hidden Corner's next level shit that I'm like thinking about right now, but holy crap.
No, I hear you, man. That's the thing. Part of me is like, we're in Florida and this is like a one-time opportunity. Another part of me is like, my life.
You just worded it perfectly. And at the end of the day, your life should always win, I hope.
It should.
Yeah, last I checked.
Nothing.
My name is Owen Bjorgan, and my great mission in life is to connect more people to the power and importance of the natural world. With best friend and cameraman Dave Tebbett, this is what happened in less than 2 weeks on this episode of Hidden Corners. After 17.5 hours of driving, we arrived at the Georgia-Florida state line. From there, we hurled ourselves into one of the most eerie and fascinating environments on Earth.
So Dave has been reaching into the depths of the Stow and Go, which is under our bed.
Yeah.
And we're ready to rock in our very first state park of Florida, which is Suwannee River.
Suwannee River was a candidate spot for our first adventure because I knew it was our most solid chance at spotting and hopefully handling the alligator snapping turtle. So, is it an alligator or a snapping turtle? It's a freshwater snapping turtle, capable of weighing over 200 pounds as an adult.
So you're probably wondering why the heck I'm walking around in Florida's backwoods with a hockey stick. It's not just because I'm Canadian, and Canadians are generally the best hockey players in the world, but this stick has many unforeseen uses out here in Florida's backwoods. Number one, testing out the land. Am I going to sink up to my knees, or am I going to remain kind of dry and keep our vehicle clean for later? Two, if we see a venomous snake, which I would love to see, this would be the tool to scoop it up and handle it safely for your camera, for our viewers, and to keep us both in a safe place. Let's continue up this creek bed and see what happens. Got him. Got him. We got the first turtle of the trip, buddy. Yes! Yes! This is our first reptilian on the trip here. Oh, look at you. Now, to be completely honest with you, I don't know what species it is right off the bat, but we can look that up later. Look at this guy. He's so cute. You want to say hi to the camera? Around the edges of pools like these, you don't want to spend too much time hanging around the edge. I'm talking about myself, not this guy where he's perfectly at home. Because in the drier season like this is a stronghold for the animals that require the water. There could very well be alligators in here as we speak, and maybe alligator snapping turtles. Completed.
Check out the slow-mo nip here. Oh!
That's the first reptile of the trip. Awesome.
Now from reptiles to amphibians with the American green tree frog.
Now how is that for an adorable tree frog? In fact, I'm quite surprised to see this tree frog out here on a hot, dry day, and even a hot, dry time of the year. Florida can support several species of tree frogs because it's in a subtropical climate. Generally speaking, there's always enough moisture and warmth down here to keep these guys happy. I'd love to show you his digits. And by digits, I mean those tiny, tiny little suction cup pads on his fingertips there. And that's how these frogs can adhere to so many different surfaces, even upside down if they really wanted to. So right there on the base of that stump is a skink. A skink, do not replace the I with an A. It's a type of lizard. And we're gonna go and try and grab them, but they're very, very fast. You see him? Where is he? Oh, is that his tail right there? After my little round of peekaboo with that skink, that is the case in point as to why the cypress trees and other trees out here that also grow on the sides of the swamps are such important habitats, even when they're gone, if you will. Check out my knees, all three of them. Actually, these two aren't mine. They belong to this stately giant right here, which is the cypress tree. The cypress tree being, of course, so iconic of the southern states and their wetlands, especially here in Florida. The cool part about the cypress tree is not only its appearance and size and haunting sort of stature, but the fact that these knees all around it, look at them, some of them are nearly as tall as me, 4 or 5 feet tall. These belong to this individual organism right here. And the cool part is that scientists don't even know why these knees are here to begin with. Is it for stability? Is it to spread out the surface area for the tree to get more nutrients? Is it to prevent erosion in the very habitat that they exist on? It is still unknown, but either way, very interesting. And it gives this awesome, awesome vibe in this swamp that we're exploring right now.
The cypress swamps cover the Swanee River Basin in huge swaths. Being the dry season, we had the privilege to explore these ancient wetlands and riverside habitats by foot, which exist as biodiversity hotspots, flood control, and are carbon sinks. Carbon sinks are ecosystems that hold and retain more carbon than they release it, and not further fueling rapid climate change.
I'm here balancing on balancing rock, and I've spotted that right over there. That is a water snake, non-venomous. Harmless, but it's going to put up a fight if I try and grab it. But I'd love to show you what is probably the most ubiquitous snake you can find along Florida's waterways and wetlands. And that perfect camouflage right there also makes me feel lucky to spot him. Try and move slowly so I don't startle him. What I've got now is this snake safely by the head. Oh, there he is. Whoa, that stink is going in your car, Dave, and I'm so sorry. But what we have here is the Florida water snake. And I'm not pinching him too hard. I do not want to hurt the snake because he's too beautiful. He's gotten the number on me. He's up 1-0, as you can see. He's huge. This one looks like the venomous and also quite common water moccasin or cottonmouth snake. However, you can tell by the eyeballs, circular pupils, just like mine. This is not a venomous snake. All it could do is bite me, make me bleed, and stink the living daylights out of me. That is defense. That is musk right there. And that musk reeks. I wish you could smell that through the camera. Take a look at the beautiful scales, these keeled scales. It's like an eel. And again, I'm not hurting him. I just wanted to show you his beautiful face and avoid myself from getting bit with a potentially infectious bite from bacteria. Once again, totally harmless, one of Florida's best residents, and I'm gonna put this one back on the bank where it belongs. Thanks for your time, pal. You got me. You're the winner on that one. Look at that, perfect camouflage, right back into that complex habitat where all the debris is built up. The snake is so at home here, and my God, this smell does not belong in anybody's home. Oh, this is limestone. Now, a lot of Florida's wetlands sits on top of this limestone shelving unit, if you want to call it that. And the cool part is from here to up here, you can see the organic material that's built up and become the soil, more or less. And it's that soil that, amazingly, despite how thin it is, supports these humongous trees, including these cypress trees that we see. Here I am, one of hundreds of these freshwater springs that are coming up from the gigantic Florida aquifer, which is basically just porous limestone saturated with water, and it comes up from underneath that and it pours out, as you can see here, into the Swanee River. That's really trippy down there. It just goes straight down into a black abyss, and that's where the Florida aquifer is.
The water was funneling up from under the rock, a current of cool, refreshing water gushing upwards at my face. And that was only day one.
Good morning from Sandy's driveway.
In Naples, Florida, we're heading out of the urban and into the rural, or the alligators rural. It's gonna be awesome. Can't wait. First things first though, breakfast to fuel our day.
Sounds good.
Speaking of breakfast, we found out pretty quickly that Florida's watering holes were a 24/7 buffet. The challenge of filming this expedition in the dry season made wildlife hard to spot, but at the last remaining water holes, the food web unfolded before our very eyes. It didn't matter how it happened, or who ate who, because the ruthless world of these watering holes are how these wetlands stay alive. We wanted to show you the action here, and have you meet the top predator of the swamp, and perhaps the world in general.
Day 2, Hidden Corners production is just underway.
The American alligator, a body structure of 8 million years old, survived human exploitation up until the 1970s, and now a top predator that isn't hard to spot in Florida.
That mama alligator could explode up this bank, and be honest, it would take 2 seconds. What's also really cool about these babies is that inside those powerful jaws, we're talking 2,000 pounds per square inch. Those big jaws will carry the little babies around. She'll scoop them up, cradle them in her mouth, go through the water, get to where they need to be, whether it's away from a potential threat, maybe, intimidation from people or human activity or other animals.
Or, like me. Don't ever attempt to get this close to any sized gator. That says, don't bite when a simple growl will do.
There's Big Mama, basking on the bankside with all of her sweet little babies. The babies, or the juveniles, stand out a little easier because of those yellow bands on their body. They stay close to the mom. They'll even call out and make a squeaking noise when they're too far from their mother. And the mother's got to stay nearby because she'll look after them like a good mama would, because unlike her as the adult, these little ones, these littlins, are very vulnerable in this big Floridian swamp to other male alligators, snapping turtles, birds of prey. They'd make a great little alligator snack right about now. These alligator slide marks are absolutely everywhere. You can see how they really carve up the bottomlands of the landscape here, and then eventually find these pools that they dig themselves into. And then we do have a resident alligator right now, as we speak, who's probably responsible for making these slide marks.
A keystone species, like the alligator, is a key ingredient that makes the ecosystem unique and survivable for many other species, especially when the alligators wallow and dig out these important water holes.
This alligator has just ate something, and what he does is he kind of gets on his, he might do it again, looks like his body's shaping up for it. Get ready. He's gonna kind of dive in on his side and do a half roll, mouth open. These alligators will eat just about anything they can fit into their mouth, including dead animals. You can clearly see from one alligator hole the slide marks under this log and into the next where he resides. And there's Dave with the GoPro trying to get the golden shot, and he will. So as you can see, the American alligator is not naturally an aggressive creature. I'm quite close to this one, and admittedly, for me at least, I'm quite comfortable for that matter. The coolest part about this is that it goes to show people that these are not born killers that are out to get you. But if you were to jump in its water, or if you were to harass it, or try and kill it yourself, then you may get what you've earned. Otherwise, this is a very peaceful animal, just minding its business in its habitat, and funny enough, a habitat that it's created for itself. my God.
These apex predators regulate the food web by eating virtually anything they can, but also controlling populations of other species. Little did I know that I was about to get regulated too. Occasionally, a few baby alligators would stray further from the mother, and we stood pretty close to them. In an effort to show you what beautiful and perfectly designed creatures they are, I attempted to handle one. At first, the mother doesn't stir during the circus on the embankment.
Okay. That says everything. Did you hear that little noise that he made? That. No. Get the fuck out of here. We gotta get out of here, man.
Don't think for a second that I was surprised that happened. I was fully aware of the seriously insane risk I took to get that close to a wild animal's children, and I knew and accepted this risk.
So, that little nyip noise, he called out to his mama right away, and I don't blame him. We earned every bit of that situation. Now that is a protective mother, and my mother would kill me if she saw what I just did. We need to move. She's not happy.
Who's ready for a cold beer for that? Golden Monkey. An extraordinary day. I don't know what to say about a day like that. That's just truly remarkable. I'm speechless. I'm hungry. My adrenaline's going. An alligator, a large, upset mother alligator, just fully charged us. I could have been dragged into the water. You could have been dragged into the water.
You would have been the appetizer, and I would have been the main course because you're a little bit more fat on me.
Well, that's okay. Like that's just sufficient enough for a large alligator that's probably like 11 feet long and could have had its way with us.
There is something about an 800-pound animal that can be perfectly still 1 second, then sprinting on top of the water the next. To say the least, we were fired up, and we had to have a release with some epic ping pong. These animals would barely flinch during a hurricane.
Wow, look at the detail.
This banded water snake is on its way to quite the party. It can likely sense the pheromones in the air that there is a female in the area, engaging in a strange reproductive ritual. Many males, usually much smaller, congregate around a single, larger female, jostling for position, nudging her back and sides with their heads, wrestling the other males out of the way, all for an opportunity to impregnate her, and to try it all again next spring. Having the body and the skills for shallow water hunting is a huge advantage. It allows the birds to move less obviously in a responsive water environment. Even the birds, like this great egret, know better than to get too comfortable in the water.
Just hungry again, as per usual. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. That looks good.
Hey, move out of the way.
Hey, what the heck do you think you're...
Okay, now you
Oh,
are
that
a real
is gonna taste
shark.
so good and
A
so
shark.
fresh.
Come on now. I want it back. Are you gonna drop that?
Just gonna tease.
Hey, are you gonna drop that over there? Drop that?
Oh,
You get it?
It's gone now. He's like, oh, that's going down.
That almost looks painful to watch.
It's like when you swallow half a piece of steak.
What a ruthless wood stork. Thankfully, at this time of year in the dry season at the watering holes, the defeats are as numerous as the victories. But the savageness of the watering hole doesn't stop short there. We had the pleasure of watching how an alligator on the smaller size bossed his way around the local hangout.
When you share the same habitat and you're at the only remaining water hole in the whole area, you gotta learn to share. It feels like you've gone back in time and you watch that thing come out of the water. Right there in the Florida sun, it'll be basking and collecting energy. It's all ectothermic or cold-blooded animals do. Look at the black vulture pushing his luck, stealing the meal. The alligator says, no, I will have that, thank you.
The alligator, whether big or small, can't have its role in the ecosystem understated. Wallowing in mud and creating habitats, eating the leftover animal scraps, eating anything it pleases but to no excessive amount, ecosystem population regulator, precisely the definition of a keystone species.
And what the alligator has done, he's gone up and he's taken the carrion, or the leftovers, the dead animals. Again, such an important role to play in this ecosystem.
Look at the birds. They're like, we worked so hard for that.
It's amazing how 3 big birds will get out of the way for a small alligator, hey?
The dry season's desperation and rawness is in plain view. The black vulture. These birds have one of the most important jobs in the nature industry. They are the cleanup crew, eating and basically recycling all of the dead and dying wildlife bodies. How many unpleasant views has this guy seen? How many times have his friends shat on his back?
Just being cheeky, coming up.
River otters are expert hunters at the watering hole. We watch the success happen over and over and over again.
Here comes the girl, here comes the girl. Where's your lens pointer? Up the hill, so I want to see him slide down. You just hit your camera. Here we go. Oh.
Aw, talk about the cutest couple of the year.
Chewing. This is how nature works. We have a bird of prey up in the tree. We have myself, a Homo sapien, watching all of this. And then right here is an otter. This is beautiful. And as for a friend up in the tree here, he'd be waiting for some of that fish scrap right there. High protein, omega-3s, down the hatch for this otter. So here we have some alligator slide marks in this mud. And where there are alligator slide marks, there are alligators. And we have a big remaining pool of water over here that's still standing strong. You have to be so careful because although they're humongous, that does not mean they're easy to spot. This is the perfectly camouflaged apex predator. And as I found out yesterday, they can move fast when they want to. So we have to be very careful.
Considering the bulky build, low metabolism, and swampy environment, American alligators have been clocked at bursts of 45 kilometers an hour on land. This makes me cautious about potential land encounters.
This is going to fill up again, of course, once the wet season sets in, which is at about this time of year. Still, have to be so careful. Even if you can't see the alligator, it could see you at any point. Master of camouflage, and it could be behind me on the dry land. Here in the Fakahatchee Strand, we have black bears, the Florida panther, the American alligator, and that's just a sign of what a healthy and humongous ecosystem this really is. And it's also a reminder to keep my eyes out for both excitement and safety reasons. Look at this place. Where are we?
The Fakahatchee Strand offered a timeless impression of what much of Florida must have once looked like. It is one of the largest undisturbed strands of swamp forest in the state. Here we see the invasive and incredibly common brown anole.
That's the male. He's got that big red flap that can expand out from underneath his neck there. And that skin flap is a way of showing his territory. It's also a way to impress some local females in the area. And he'll do some head bobbing like that.
Every Hidden Corners expedition is about literally and figuratively going off the path. Wildlife sightings or not, the human experience of stepping into truly wild areas is always a humbling feeling.
Dude, this is a thick-bodied snake. This is really cool.
We'll watch out with the thorns.
I honestly could not tell you what species that is based on the skin, but it's incredible that it's in this good a condition. That's a great, beautiful texture. And that's also why some rattlesnakes, I'm not saying this is one, and other beautiful species are hunted sometimes for their skins.
I just asked Owen to pull out the compass so we know where the trail is in regards to us.
Okay, so if that's the trail, and we stand parallel with it.
And we're heading west, and we know if we head back east, we'll eventually get back to our van and cold sandwiches and beer.
I'm feeling like a little bit of a tool for how much sunscreen I had to put on my pasty Canadian body. But speaking of tools, did you know alligators are known to use tools? And scientists have seen the alligators take sticks, get them perfectly balanced their position on the top of their snout there, and then a bird, like one of these mini water birds or even wading birds, will go and grab that stick or sit on it and stand on it, and then wham, it's a trap, and you're in 2,000 pounds per square inch of jaw pressure.
Places like Fakahatchee remind me that the adrenaline on these trips is fueled by nature's remarkable existence at every angle and every scale.
People, human beings, Homo sapiens, are also responsible for approximately 50% of Florida's wetlands being lost. And by lost, I mean drained, logged, manipulated in some way or another. It is quite the remarkable landscape, and it's also quite remarkable what a disproportionate impact we have had on the environment around here. So the alligator may be the keystone species for nature, but are we the keystone species for the planet in the worst way possible? Up for grabs, up for discussion. Guy up front here was parked here earlier. Remember, he's like, hey, this is going to be a trail that leads to a whole lot of nothing.
Whole lot of nothing.
We quickly found ourselves in this mangrove ecosystem. Mangrove shrubs and trees are adapted to salt or brackish water conditions. They possess incredibly thick leaves.
That's for getting pounded by the sun all the time and not losing the moisture. And these plants are salt resistant. In fact, look, you can see them sweating it out. Can you see the droplets there? On the top, and it is so salty. Isn't that cool? Our first hidden corner of the Keys was a hidden corner for both nature and society alike.
Whoa, were we in the presence of some kind of swamp monster? Nope. The only swamp monster we need to worry about is the human species.
What a tough catch. Thank God the mangroves here catch all of the trash that human beings don't properly dispose of, so they act as a filter for all the garbage that would otherwise make it out to the sea.
The amount of trash we found here was, quite frankly, depressing.
This is how bad the trash problem is out here. Jeez. Could have been glass. I have an environmental dilemma because I just took a quick pee beside the waterway here along Highway 41, which is chock full of wildlife. And I peed on this 6-ring plastic can holder piece. And these are one of the worst culprits ever for getting wildlife entangled, and it can be stuck on wildlife for years. I'm just trying to grab the driest spot of it because I just feel so guilty. I can't just urinate on that and walk away. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. But if it saves a turtle's life in this beautiful landscape, then let it be worth it. It's dripping.
Not littering is a simple thing we can all do, and we can avoid situations like this.
We lost their favorite people here.
This endangered species, the key deer, numbers less than 1,000 in the wild, lives close to humans, and isn't hard to find on the few islands it inhabits. It is a smaller build than the familiar white-tailed deer.
Well, as beautiful as that is, it almost signifies the problem between humans and deer having to share the same habitat.
But amazingly, their stomachs are adapted to eating mangroves. Much of Florida is riddled with strange environmental dilemmas. Introduced species are rampant, like this green iguana, and endangered species live among the people, like the key deer. I thought about the wasteland of garbage that made it treacherous for Dave and I to trek through, and then the immense section of undisturbed mangroves we are about to explore reminded me of their ecosystem service to people. These areas capture garbage, pollutants, and sediments from completely washing out into the ocean forever. They are also protective barriers to beach shoreline erosion, and protective saviors in times of hurricanes. Not to mention their biodiversity importance, being a hunting and breeding zone for 13 shark species and 5 species of sea turtle, including the endangered and exceedingly rare Kemp's Ridley turtle.
The mangrove habitat is incredible, and we're going to explore it from the root base. Here we go!
Now this is a real eye-popper. This is the exoskeleton of a horseshoe crab. Nothing alive in my hands here.
This is, wow, cool. This is one of the most ancient organisms on the planet still alive to this day. Like, check out the inside.
This animal is known as a living fossil because its fossil records date back as far as 450 million years old. The human impact on Florida's wild spaces comes in many shapes and sizes, but it took a limelight position in the Florida Keys. So far, we had lived together in this van for over a week, and we haven't even bickered once. It was time to head back to mainland, into the dried up jungles and endless backroads.
There's some big splashing out there, right? There's so much happening here. If that doesn't intimidate you how quickly those three disappeared into this water here, then I don't know what would give you a greater respect for this top predator. My gosh. Dude, it is so spooky being in here. Oh, it's like literally rotting. Can't even carry it. I'm way too spooked to be in here right now. I gotta get out. There's like gators everywhere.
I was truly surrounded by about 100 alligators in one pond, crouching on a tiny peninsula. There is something about their indifference to engage you, an animal you can be a few feet away from before it decides to make a move, if at all.
Is he walking towards us or away? Can't tell.
This is the one, this is the one.
Towards us.
Look out.
What a little belly flop.
Jump on up.
Alright, this here appears to be a rat snake, non-venomous, and it's on the road basking right now in the late morning hours. Bring my phone to show you. He will try and bite, even though he's not venomous, but... Look at that! He puts up a good little show for a little snake, eh? So he's non-venomous. Look at that! Look at he rears up his posture! That is so impressive! Let's make sure he doesn't get under a vehicle. That snake is non-venomous, just like the water snake from the northern part of the state. How do you like that, cameraman?
Oh god.
Touching a wild American alligator was one of my personal fundamentals of the trip, like holding a bullet ant in Ecuador. The ultimate rush for me is to interact with another rightful living thing in its home on its terms. We all share this planet and its resources together. There is a required shift in politics and daily human behaviors to rejuvenate a more balanced world, a biophilic world. In this world, humans would enjoy the necessities and, if we're lucky, luxuries of life, but we can still treat the natural world with cautious respect for the sake of other species. Speaking of cautious respect, I have a cautious respect for the cameraman when it comes to a match of celebratory ping pong. Just like we're never done with ping pong, I'm never done with trying to find more snake species. Knowing that there are 50 species of snake in this state keeps me thrilled. We're eager to find more, including the legendary eastern diamondback rattlesnake, the heaviest venomous snake in all the Americas and one of the longest.
We're here in excellent eastern diamondback rattlesnake habitat. It almost irks me to know that they've got to be here. Even in the dry season, this place is still a little bit damp, but it's got these drier pockets of land supporting big pine trees. Lots of rocks. What the eastern diamondback will do during the daytime is it'll move from patch to patch to patch to patch and stay in those shady areas, and also sit and wait for prey items to come scampering or slithering on by. This is such a great habitat. It's the perfect time of day.
No luck with the rattlesnake, but exploring the dried up forests of Myakka River State Park gifted us with an armadillo. Speedy!
Oh my god, they're... Oh, I was just about to dive into a cloud of thorns, but we can just admire him from here. What a strange, strange animal. A mammal with a scaly plated back.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 4th direction change we've done on this hike. It's fantastic.
And this time we got it right for the 4th time.
We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet.
Well, if you're lost, you may as well take a moment to tell everyone about those greenish-gray beards you see hanging on the trees down here. Spanish moss gave me a beer I've never had.
This here is the good old Spanish moss. But it's not actually moss, and it's not even a lichen for that matter. In fact, it's just an epiphytic plant, which means it doesn't require roots in the ground. It grows and hangs from the branches here. Home sweet home. Pretty close. Incredible. I just love being next to these ancient reptilian beasts. Dave's over there somewhere, scampering around the outside of the pool.
There I was, standing next to Trump's prototype of the wall, next to Fakahatchee Strand. Roads are enough of a dangerous barrier to cross for the Florida panther and other wildlife, but now the added challenge of an enormous chain-linked fence? We've lost most of these habitats, and now we're putting boxes around them and divisions within them. When the habitats get too small or too broken up like this, one of two things is likely to happen. One, genetic inbreeding in one area leads to the demise of populations. Or two, there simply just isn't enough habitat or resources to support certain species. I think Dave and I want to emphasize a couple things about this crazy expedition. One, life is really tough around the watering hole in the dry season. Imagine all of the necessities of life, from food, to water, to reproductive mates, to habitat, and it's all congested in just a small area. Finding those hidden corners was a challenge, but was always rewarding. And two, the need to protect wetland ecosystems across the globe should be considered urgent matter. It is estimated that over half of the planet's wetlands have been destroyed since 1900 due to drainage, pollution, and invasive species. This is a loss of complex and invaluable areas in our world, areas fostering high biodiversity and the ability to protect people from climate change and natural disasters. When we hear about draining the swamp, maybe we could focus on the swamps at risk of being further drained.
2, 3, 4.